During our engagement party, my fiancée announced her ex would stay in our lives, so I left. A week later, her family lost everything. It was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. Instead, it became the moment I realized love without respect is just a slow form of self-destruction. You know those moments in life where everything seems perfect, like the universe finally decides to give you a break, and then, in one breath, it all shatters? Yeah, that was my engagement night. I'm Ethan, 29, software engineer, part-time guitar player, full-time idiot in love. Or I was. When I first met Clara, it was one of those cliche movie moments. Coffee spilled, awkward apologies, and her laugh. God, that laugh. It sounded like sunlight. I know that's a dumb way to describe it, but back then, she was everything warm in a world that always felt cold. We met at a tech conference in San Francisco. She wasn't even in tech, she was in marketing, working for her father's company. I was there trying to network, sweating through my only decent blazer, when she sat next to me during a panel. We started talking, and it was like the noise of the entire hall faded out. She had this way of looking directly into you, like she already knew you before you introduced yourself. 3 years later, I was standing in a mansion with crystal chandeliers and people wearing champagne smiles, celebrating our engagement, or so I thought. From the beginning, Clara and I came from two different worlds. My family, middle class, humble, grounded. My mom's a school teacher, my dad's a mechanic. I grew up learning to fix what's broken, save what you can, and earn everything twice before you spend it once. Clara's family, on the other hand, had a last name people whispered with either envy or admiration. Her father, Richard Davenport, was the kind of man whose presence filled a room before he even walked into it. CEO of a family empire that started in construction and expanded into half a dozen industries. When Clara brought me home for the first time, he shook my hand like he was testing the strength of my bones. Her mother, Lydia, smiled in that way where her lips moved but her eyes didn't. They were polite, too polite. And polite in their world meant judgment wrapped in etiquette. I remember overhearing her mom whisper once when she thought I wasn't around, "He seems nice for someone without a family name." Clara defended me though, every single time. She'd argue with them, saying love wasn't about money or pedigree. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. I thought that's what love was supposed to be. Two people against the world. Fast forward to our engagement party. The Davenport mansion looked like something out of a royal wedding special. Strings of fairy lights hung from the ceiling, jazz music floated through the air, and waiters in white gloves offered hors d'oeuvres I couldn't pronounce. My name was on the guest list, but it still didn't feel like my world. Everywhere I looked, people whispered. Old business partners, investors, relatives who probably hadn't hugged Clara since she was 5, but showed up to get a photo for social media. I stood near the bar, holding my drink, feeling like a supporting actor in someone else's movie. My best friend Ryan nudged me. "Bro, relax. You look like you're about to interview for your own wedding." I laughed, mostly because it was true. Then Clara walked in, and just like that, every thought in my head went quiet. She wore a simple white dress, not the fancy designer one her mom picked, but the one she told me she felt herself in. Her hair was tied loosely, curls framing her face. She looked at me from across the room and smiled that same sunlight smile that started it all. For a moment, everything felt right again. The music stopped. Her father took the microphone, gave a pompous toast about merging of families and legacies built on love and business. I stood there, smiling like an idiot, ignoring the parts where he subtly hinted at how fortunate I was to join their family. Then it was Clara's turn to speak. Now, I've seen people give emotional speeches. I've heard brides-to-be cry talking about their partners. But what came out of Clara's mouth that night still echoes in my head like a bad dream on repeat. She began beautifully. "Ethan," she said, looking right at me, her voice trembling just enough to sound real. "You've been my anchor, my calm in chaos, my best friend. You've loved me in ways I didn't even know I needed to be loved." People sighed, smiled, clapped softly. I felt my throat tighten with emotion, then she continued. "But I also believe in being honest, and I want our marriage to be built on transparency." That sentence alone made my stomach twist. There's someone who's been an important part of my journey. Someone who helped me grow into who I am today. My ex, Jake. The room went dead silent. I blinked, thinking maybe she misspoke. Maybe it was leading somewhere else. But she smiled, calmly, confidently, and kept going. "Jake has been a part of my life for years. He's seen me through my highs and lows, and I don't believe in erasing people who shaped me. So I want everyone to know that Jake will continue to be a part of my life, and ours, because real love isn't about possession. It's about acceptance." You ever have that moment where your brain just stops? Like your mind can't process the words because they don't fit the reality, you know? That was me. Half the room gasped. Her mother's wine glass froze midair. Ryan muttered under his breath, "What the actual hell?" And me? I just stared at her. She said it like she was announcing our honeymoon destination. So calm, so sure, like she expected applause for her progressive honesty. People started whispering. Some awkwardly clapped. Her father's face turned red, half from embarrassment, half from rage. And Clara just kept smiling, holding the microphone like a TED speaker. My mind was racing. Was this a joke? A test? Some weird social experiment? Then I saw Jake. Yeah, he was there, sitting at one of the front tables, wearing a smug grin that said he already knew. That's when I felt something in me just snap. Not in anger, not even heartbreak, just finality. Like watching a bridge burn behind you and realizing you're better off on this side. I took a deep breath. set my glass on the table. The sound of it gently touching the marble echoed louder than anything else. Everyone was watching me now. I walked up just close enough for her to see the calm in my face, and I said, quietly, clear enough for the mic to pick up, "Then I hope he's there to catch you when I'm gone." And I turned around and walked out. I didn't look back, not once. Not at her face, not at the whispers, not at the chaos that followed. As I stepped outside, the night air hit me like a slap. Cold, sharp, real. It felt freeing. For 3 years, I'd built my life around her. I tolerated her family's condescension, ignored her emotional distance, justified every red flag because I thought love meant loyalty no matter what. But in that moment, I realized something simple but brutal. Love without respect isn't love, it's worship. And I was done worshiping someone who thought humiliating me in front of 200 people was honesty. I walked home that night in silence. Didn't even call a cab, just walked. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and white, and my mind replayed her voice over and over. Jake will continue to be a part of our lives. Our lives. She really said that. By the time I got home, my phone was already blowing up. Texts, calls, voicemails. Ryan, holy shit, bro. Are you okay? Mom, Ethan, we love you. Come home. Clara, please, can we talk? You're overreacting. Overreacting. That word broke something inside me more than her speech did. I stared at the message, laughed bitterly, and turned off my phone. That night, I sat on my couch staring at the engagement ring box. It still glimmered under the dim light, like it hadn't realized its purpose was already gone. I opened it one last time. Then I closed it, slid it into my drawer, and made a quiet promise to myself. Never again will I beg to be respected. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen missed calls from her. Her friends had already started posting heartfelt captions online about how love requires understanding. Apparently, I was the bad guy now. The immature one who couldn't handle his fiancée being friends with her ex. Let them talk. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't about insecurity. It was about boundaries. And if she couldn't understand that, then she wasn't the woman I thought she was. Still, I won't lie. It hurt like hell. You don't just switch off love overnight. You just learn to live without the illusion of it. And as I sat there watching the sunrise through my apartment window, coffee in hand, I realized something else. The truth doesn't always destroy you immediately. Sometimes it burns slowly, so you can feel every second of what's ending. But in the ashes, something new starts forming. Something stronger. And I had no idea then that this heartbreak would be the beginning of the biggest turning point in my life for both of us. Because 1 week later, karma came knocking on the Davenport family's door hard. They thought I'd crawl back. Instead, I went silent, and that scared them more than any outburst ever could. Silence is powerful. It's funny when you stop reacting, people start hearing their own echoes. After the engagement party disaster, I didn't scream, argue, or post anything online. I just disappeared. No messages, no responses, no closure. Just a void where I used to be. And apparently that terrified them. The morning after I walked out of the party, I woke up to my phone vibrating like it was possessed. 53 missed calls. Dozens of texts, most from Clara, a few from unknown numbers, one from her father. I didn't answer any of them. Then came the emails. Her mother's assistant even sent me an official sounding one titled Clarification Regarding Last Night's Misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. That word alone almost made me laugh. There was no misunderstanding. She made it crystal clear her ex would continue to be part of our lives. What she didn't realize was that by saying that publicly, she ended the our part of that sentence forever. By noon, I decided to get out of the apartment. I went for a long walk through downtown, coffee in one hand, music in my ears, trying to quiet the noise in my head. Every street corner reminded me of her. The little bookstore where we first kissed. The cafe where she'd steal my fries even after saying she wasn't hungry. The park bench where she once told me, "You're my home." Home. Yeah, right. When I came back, there she was, standing in front of my apartment door, makeup streaked, eyes red, still wearing the same diamond bracelet I'd given her a month ago. "Ethan, please," she said the moment she saw me. "Can we talk? Just talk." I didn't answer. I unlocked my door, stepped inside, and left it open just enough for her to decide whether she wanted to follow. She did. She always did. Inside, she stood in the living room like she didn't belong there anymore, and she didn't. She looked small, fragile even, like the confident woman from the night before had been replaced by a scared girl who just realized the bridge she burned was the only one leading home. "I messed up," she whispered. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I raised an eyebrow. "You said it into a microphone, Clara. You practiced that speech, didn't you?" She froze, didn't answer. I took a deep breath, trying not to explode. "You thanked your ex during our engagement. You said he continued to be part of our lives. You embarrassed me in front of everyone we know. Tell me how I'm supposed to take that." She looked at me with those tear-filled eyes, the kind that used to make me melt. "It was just symbolic, Ethan. I wanted to show that I'm mature enough to acknowledge my past. Jake and I are just friends." There it was again, that word, just. I'd heard it too many times before. "Just friends, huh?" I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "Like those late-night texts he sent that you swore were just about work? Or those lunches you had where you just caught up? Or that time you went to his apartment after he broke up with his girlfriend because he was just going through a hard time?" Her face turned pale. She didn't think I remembered. Flashback a year ago, she'd gone out to comfort a friend. Came home hours later smelling like his cologne. She said it was just a hug. I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to. Love makes you blind, but denial makes you comfortable. And I'd been way too comfortable for way too long. "I love you," she said, voice cracking. "You're the one I want to be with. I just didn't want to erase someone who was important to me once." I laughed bitter. tired. You didn't just fail to erase him, Clara. You carved a seat for him at our table. She stepped closer, reaching for my hand. Ethan, please. Don't throw away everything we have. I pulled my hand back. I'm not throwing anything away. You did. That silence hung between us, thick and suffocating. Finally, she whispered, you're really done, aren't you? I was done the moment you decided to share our relationship with your ex. She tried to speak, but I opened the door and said, you should go, I said softly. Before your family starts thinking I kidnapped their reputation too. She hesitated, then left slow steps, quiet sobs. The click of the door closing behind her felt heavier than it should have. The next few days were chaos. Her family went into PR overdrive. Her father called me, left a voicemail laced with fake concern. Ethan, I think you're letting emotions cloud your judgment. Clara didn't mean to embarrass you. Don't let this affect our family's relationship. Our family's relationship. He always talked like everything was a business merger. Then came her mother. Ethan, darling, you can't just walk away over something so trivial. Claire's a good girl. She just has an open heart. An open heart. Yeah, so open her ex was still living rent-free in it. I didn't respond. Not to them, not to her, not to anyone. Instead, I focused on what I could control my work. I co-owned a small tech startup called Nova Logic, specializing in cybersecurity for mid-sized companies. We'd been grinding for 3 years, barely keeping afloat. But the week after I ended things with Clara, something in me changed. I started showing up earlier, staying later. My team noticed. My co-founder Liam joked, breakups are like free Red Bull for productivity. He wasn't wrong. The silence I'd been avoiding became fuel. Every time I thought of Clara's voice, I dove deeper into code. Every time I imagined her with Jake, I sent another client proposal. I built something new out of the ashes of what she destroyed. Meanwhile, I started hearing whispers. Not from her, but from the world around her. At first, it was small stuff. Her father's company, Davenport Holdings, had missed a quarterly report. Then some article hinted at possible internal audits. Nothing major, not yet. But then, one night, Liam walked over to my desk with his phone out. Dude, he said, you need to see this. It was a financial blog, the kind that thrives on corporate rumors. Headlined, Davenport Holdings facing investigation over possible misuse of government contracts. I blinked. You're kidding. He shrugged. It's probably nothing, but man, that's rough timing for your ex's family. Rough timing. Yeah, karma's timing is always rough if you're the one who earned it. The next day, Clara showed up again. I didn't open the door. She stood outside my apartment for over an hour, crying, knocking, pleading. Then her voice got cold. You're acting like a child, Ethan. This silence is cruel. I didn't answer. Because here's the thing. Silence isn't cruelty. It's clarity. People like Clara are addicted to attention. They think love means constant reassurance, even when they're the ones who break you. When you stop feeding that, they panic. And she was panicking. I spent that evening working late, ignoring the notifications piling up. When I finally opened my phone, her last text read, "You'll regret walking away from me." I didn't reply. But I did save the message. Not as a threat, as a reminder. Flashback again. 2 years earlier. Clara had just come back from a networking dinner. She mentioned Jake in passing, said he was just checking in. I remember asking, doesn't it feel weird still talking to him? She smiled and said, not really. He's harmless. You trust me, right? And I did. Because I wanted to. That's the thing about trust. It's less about belief and more about hope. You hope the other person won't make you regret giving it. But standing there, reading her latest text, I realized she'd cashed out all the hope I had left. By Friday, the rumors about her family weren't rumors anymore. It was on national news. Federal investigators raid Davenport Holdings over alleged accounting fraud. I remember watching the live stream news vans parked outside their mansion, reporters shouting questions, her father shoving past cameras. Clara wasn't in the footage, but Jake was, right behind her father, wearing a smug look. Apparently, he'd joined the company's marketing team months ago, a consultant. I sat back in my chair, a slow, disbelieving smile forming. The same man she wanted to keep in her life was now publicly attached to a sinking ship. And the best part, my company had just landed a major contract, the kind of deal her father once told me I'd never get without connections. That weekend, Clara finally stopped calling. Her last message said, I don't know what's happening. Everything's falling apart. I wish you'd talk to me. But I didn't. Because there was nothing left to say. She wanted me to accept her ex as part of our future. Instead, she and her family got him as part of their downfall. And me? I just kept moving forward, not out of spite. Not out of revenge, but because sometimes the best payback is peace and silence is the loudest revenge of all. They thought I'd crawl back. Instead, I went silent, and in that silence, their empire began to crumble. When pride meets karma, it never ends quietly. It's funny how quiet the world gets when karma finally clocks in for its shift. You don't hear thunder or alarms or explosions. You just wake up one morning, pour yourself some coffee, and watch the storm unfold. Except this time, it's not over your head. The week after the engagement fiasco was the longest week of my life. The whispers, the calls, the messages, all of them came in waves. People wanted to know what happened, what I'd said, whether it was true. Some people acted like they cared. Most were just nosy. I didn't respond to a single one. I'd gone radio silent, deleted my socials, turned off my phone, and buried myself in work. Silence, I learned, was its own kind of weapon. And unlike shouting, it didn't make you look weak. It made people terrified of what you might do next. That's what scared Clara and her family the most. Not that I'd left, not that I'd humiliated them, by walking out in front of hundreds of guests, but that I didn't say anything afterward. No explanation, no statement, no drama, just nothing. They tried to control the story at first. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Clara's parents were spinning some PR nonsense about how I had anger issues, and how Clara's comment about Jake was taken out of context. Some tabloids even ran the headline, "Engagement Party Misunderstanding, Couple Taking Time Apart." Time apart? Cute. Meanwhile, I was in my small apartment eating leftover pizza and debugging lines of code at 2 a.m. because the startup I'd co-founded was about to close a major deal. My world wasn't glamorous, but it was real, and it was mine. Then the whispers began. It started with a few online rumors about Clara's father's company, Varelli Holdings, being under investigation for financial irregularities. I ignored it at first. Rich people always had whispers following them. It's like background noise for their lifestyle. But a few days later, the whispers turned into headlines. Varelli Holdings faces investigation over alleged tax evasion and bribery scandal. And then, sources claim internal leaks sparked probe into Varelli's finances. My phone buzzed nonstop that morning. I was in the middle of a team call when my buddy Nate, who handled cybersecurity at our firm, said, "Bro, you seeing this? Varelli's stock just tanked 30% in 1 hour." I thought he was joking, but then he shared his screen. It was real. I don't believe in karma as some mystical force, but when you see the people who once treated you like dirt suddenly sink under the weight of their own pride, it's hard not to feel like the universe just smirked. The investigation moved fast, too fast. Reporters swarmed their mansion. Former employees came forward with stories. Leaked documents appeared online showing shady offshore accounts, rigged contracts, bribed officials. It was chaos. And then came the irony so sharp it could have cut glass. Apparently, one of the data leaks that triggered the government probe came from a cybersecurity audit done by, you guessed it, our company. We'd been working with the Financial Oversight Agency on improving fraud detection systems. During a data validation check, some inconsistencies in file hashes pointed to manipulated accounting entries. We reported it through official channels as per our compliance protocols. And that report, it traced back to Varelli Holdings. I didn't plan it. I didn't even know until Nate casually dropped, "Dude, that company your ex's family runs, it's on the list we flagged." At first, I laughed, that kind of bitter, disbelieving laugh that sounds like it's trying to hold back years of swallowed rage. But the more I thought about it, the more poetic it became. They spent years thinking people like me didn't belong in their world, and now my work, my team, my name were indirectly tied to the very collapse of theirs. Clara's father must have realized it too, because 3 days later, I got an email from his assistant. Subject: private business meeting, request urgent. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't reply. A day later, another one came in, this time directly from him. It wasn't even written by a PR rep. It was him, personally. "Ethan, I know things ended poorly between you and Clara, but I'd like to speak to you about a potential collaboration that could be mutually beneficial. I believe your firm's solutions could help us stabilize certain ongoing challenges. Please let me know when you're available. Richard Varelli." That's the thing about people like him. When they're on top, you're invisible. When they're falling, you're suddenly essential. I didn't respond immediately. I took my time a few days, in fact, not to play games, but because I wanted to be calm. I wanted to look at the situation without anger, without bitterness, just clarity. When I finally agreed to meet, I did it on my terms at a quiet restaurant downtown. One of those places that's fancy enough for respect, but not so expensive. It smells like ego. He showed up 10 minutes late, of course. Old habits die hard. When he saw me, I noticed the cracks. His tailored suit couldn't hide the exhaustion. His eyes looked hollow, like a man who hadn't slept in days. He smiled, that same politician smile he'd given me the first time I met him. "Ethan," he said, extending his hand. "Good to see you again, son." I didn't take it right away. I waited just long enough for the silence to sting, then shook it once. We sat down. He ordered something expensive without looking at the menu. I just asked for black coffee. He made small talk for a bit about how business was volatile and how sometimes you just need the right partnerships to weather the storm. He tried to sound confident, but I could hear the desperation bleeding through every word. Then he leaned forward. "Ethan, I'll be direct. I know what your company is capable of. I know the kind of influence you've built. We need a strategic partner with technical expertise and credibility to help us rebuild our trust with investors. I think we can help each other." I took a slow sip of my coffee. "Help each other?" I asked quietly. He nodded. "You'd gain access to high-level corporate accounts and resources. We'd stabilize operations, clear the noise, and—" "Mr. Varelli," I interrupted softly, "you taught me something very valuable." He blinked, caught off guard. "You taught me that I wasn't good enough for your family," I said. "That I didn't belong in your world. You made sure I felt that every time I stepped foot in your house." His jaw tightened. I could see him trying to keep his composure. "So, imagine my confusion," I continued, "when suddenly your world's falling apart and the same guy who wasn't good enough is the one you're asking for help." He opened his mouth to say something, but I held up a hand. "You don't owe me an apology," I said, "and I'm not here for revenge. But partnership?" I smiled faintly. "You built your empire on arrogance and shortcuts. I built mine on integrity. We're not the same. We never were." Then I stood up. "I genuinely hope you figured things out," I said. "But this isn't my problem anymore." He didn't stop me. Didn't say a word, just sat there, staring down at the table as I walked out. When I stepped outside, the air felt different, lighter somehow. Not because I'd won anything, but because I finally understood what peace felt like when you stop chasing validation from people who'll never give it. A few days later, the final nail hit. Verelli Holdings filed for bankruptcy. Their assets were frozen. Their investors jumped ship. The same mansion where they once hosted glittering parties was now crawling with reporters and court officials. I saw a picture online. Clara standing outside their gate, trying to shield her face from cameras. She looked lost. Not angry, not proud. Just lost. And for a brief second, I felt something, not satisfaction, but a kind of quiet sadness. Because despite everything, I once loved her. I once believed in us. But love without respect is hollow. And respect without accountability is meaningless. People always think karma is about revenge. It's not. It's about balance. You put arrogance into the world, it'll come back as humility. You plant deceit, you'll harvest exposure. You mock honesty, and someday you'll wish someone had been honest enough to save you. So when pride met karma that week, it didn't end quietly. It ended exactly how it was always meant to. And me, I didn't celebrate. I just kept working quietly, steadily, because the best revenge will always be a life that no longer cares about revenge. They say revenge is sweet, but peace is addictive. By the time the dust finally settled, there was nothing left of the world Clara once ruled. The mansion sold, the cars repossessed, the empire her father built on charm and corruption, gone, dismantled, piece by people who once toasted champagne at his table. It happened fast. Too fast for someone who'd spent her entire life believing that status was permanent, that money could buy redemption, that pride could disguise pain. I didn't watch the headlines religiously, but they found me anyway. People love tragedy, especially when it happens to the ones who used to act untouchable. Every article carried the same undertone disbelief. How could the Verellis fall? And every time I saw one of those headlines, I thought, easily. All it takes is a single truth. Jake, Clara's ex, the guy she thanked during our engagement party, of all moments, he was the first to disappear when things went south. Apparently, he'd been freeloading off her family's money longer than anyone realized. When the accounts froze and the press started digging into their financials, Jake pulled what he always did best. He ghosted. One morning, he packed up, left a text that said, "Need to figure myself out," and vanished. No forwarding address, no calls, no guilt. And just like that, the man she'd chosen to keep in her life turned out to be her final reminder of how wrong her choices had been. Weeks passed. I'd fully shifted back into my routine, or maybe I'd finally built a new one. Early mornings at the gym, long hours at the office, and quiet evenings where my mind didn't spiral back to the past anymore. I'd stopped replaying the night of the engagement party, stopped wondering what I could have said differently. The silence after walking away had taught me more than any closure conversation ever could. Sometimes not explaining yourself is the clearest explanation there is. Then one evening, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I usually ignored those, but some small gut feeling made me pick up. Ethan? Her voice. For a second, I didn't breathe. It had been months since I'd heard it, yet the way she said my name still carried that softness that once made me believe in us. Clara. There was a pause, a shaky inhale. I didn't know if you'd pick up. I almost didn't, I said honestly. She gave a weak laugh, the kind people use to hide a crack in their voice. I don't know how to start this. Everything's a mess. Dad's gone. Mom's barely speaking to anyone. We lost the house, Ethan. The company, everything. I'm staying with an aunt now. I didn't say anything. I just listened. I know you probably don't care, she continued quickly. But I needed to tell you I'm sorry. For that night. For what I said. For everything. Her words tumbled out. Messy and raw, like someone who'd rehearsed them 100 times but still couldn't get them right. I thought I was protecting something, she said quietly. My image, my independence, I don't even know. I told myself that being friends with Jake made me strong, that it proved I wasn't defined by anyone. But really, I was just afraid of losing control, and I ended up losing everything anyway. Her voice broke on that last word. For a long time, I didn't know what to say. Part of me, the old me, wanted to comfort her, to tell her it would be okay, to soften the edges of what she was feeling. But the truth was, she needed to feel it. Clara, I said finally, you don't owe me an apology. She sniffled. I do. I humiliated you. I made you feel small in front of everyone. Yeah, I admitted. You did. But that night taught me something important. It taught me what kind of love I want and what kind I'll never accept again. There was silence on the line. Then softly she said, "Can we meet just once, please?" We met the next day. A small cafe near the edge of town, neutral ground. Nothing fancy, just quiet. When I saw her walk in, I barely recognized her. The woman who used to walk into rooms like she owned them now moved like she was afraid to be noticed. Her once perfect hair was tied in a simple bun. The designer clothes were replaced by something plain, unbranded. No jewelry, no confidence. Just Clara stripped down to the person beneath all the privilege. She sat across from me, clutching her coffee like it was the only thing keeping her steady. "I don't expect anything," she said immediately. "I just wanted to see you, to tell you in person that I was wrong." I nodded slowly. "Okay." She looked at me for a long time, eyes glassy. "You look different," she said finally. "I feel different. I used to think you were too calm," she said, "that you didn't fight hard enough for things. I thought strength was loud." She gave a sad smile. "Turns out, real strength is walking away when everything in you wants to stay." I didn't reply. She needed to see it, not me. "I loved you," she whispered. "I still do. I just didn't know how to love someone who didn't need saving or control. I kept trying to fit you into my world when you were the one trying to build something real. For a brief second, I saw the girl I'd fallen for. The one who laughed freely, who used to hold my hand while talking about dreams instead of social circles. But time had done its work. That version of her was gone. Clara, I said softly, I forgive you. She blinked, tears pooling in her eyes. You do? I do, I said. But forgiveness doesn't mean return. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She just nodded slowly, tears spilling quietly down her cheeks. I deserve that, she whispered. I finished my coffee, stood up, and slid a few bills under the cup. She looked up at me like she wanted to freeze the moment, to stretch it a little longer. I gave her one last smile, not cruel, not pitying, just final. You wanted your ex to be part of your life, I said softly. Turns out, he was the last person left when everything else fell apart. I turned and walked away. No dramatics, no bitterness, just peace. And I swear I felt lighter with every step. People like to romanticize revenge as if it's some grand, fiery ending where you stand tall while the other person burns. But the truth, revenge isn't satisfying, not really. Because when the fire goes out, you're still standing there, covered in smoke, wondering why it doesn't feel like victory. Peace, though peace is something else. Peace is waking up and realizing you no longer care who hurt you because they don't have a place in your head anymore. It's smiling at your reflection and seeing a version of yourself that doesn't flinch when the past knocks. That's where I am now. My startup took off. We landed 2 major contracts that same month. I moved into a new apartment, not huge, not flashy, but mine. The team grew. My life grew. Sometimes when I drive past places that used to mean something, that cafe we used to go to, the park where we talked about forever, I feel a faint tug of nostalgia. But it doesn't ache anymore. It's just history. And maybe that's what growth really is, when you can look back without wanting to rewrite anything. Because even the heartbreak, the humiliation, the loss, it all taught me something I couldn't have learned any other way. Love without respect will always destroy you slowly. And self-respect without boundaries isn't self-respect at all. So yeah, they say revenge is sweet. But peace is addictive, and I'm never giving it up again. Alright, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. We have so many more amazing stories coming your way. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to reach 100k subscribers by the end of this year, and we'd love for you to be part of this journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.